Welcome to G5 Classified, your one-stop shop for all things Group of 5 college football. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Gabe Kuhn and Kyron Samuels. Now, let's talk some G5 football.
What's up, man? What's up, Gabe? How you doing?
What's happening, brother? We're rolling. How about, man, isn't it great when a vision becomes realized? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man.
We have G5 Classified. We have two Group of 5 interior offensive linemen talking some unfiltered football, get into the nitty-gritty too. But episode 1 is upon us. Now, the way this whole thing's going to work, we're going to have 2 segments just about every time we do this thing. We're going to talk about the week's worth of games. We'll definitely talk outside of the Group of 5 as well, but then usually second segment, we're going to have a guest of some sort. And I'll tell you this, we have some good guests lined up for the season, man. I'm hyped up for it.
100%, man. And it's a beautiful thing. Shout out to our producer for that beautiful intro and Gabe for the voiceover right there. That was snazzy. I really enjoyed that. But if it's all right with you, man, I'll be happy to go ahead and get into the talk.
Yes, sir. I'll say this, though, real quick. We do have to give a shout-out to our guy behind the scenes, Kenny Stubbs. Kenny Stubblefield will be behind the scenes, but we'll get rolling, brother. I think we need to get rolling because week 0 was – it's kind of crazy to see that slate of games. It actually produced one that just completely took the talk away from everything else. Like, it delivered because of that one upset we saw, Georgia Tech over top of Florida State in Ireland with that last-second field goal by Georgia Tech, man. That – to me, it's wild to see how Florida State was talked about heading into the year versus what the hell we saw. I had the sense that they got that 10th spot in the AP poll because a little bit of pity from last year. Like, let's be honest, because the college football playoff, getting left out, the whole thing. But, like, I also thought it was just really based on 13-0 in the regular season because they did not replace their positions of need with guys that were either better fits or lateral fits. It just, this team's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, you heard all offseason about 2 groups specifically. You talked about the offensive line and the defensive line. They returned one of the more experienced offensive line in all of college football. And then we had people talking about their defensive line like they were going to be one of the best or the best in the entire country. So when you get out there, you see Georgia Tech running the ball up and down the field, and it wasn't like anything fluky, right? They did it from the first drive all the way through the game. So when you see those guys getting pushed back, guys not fitting right, the linebackers are all out of place. The coaching seemed like it was very sterile. It was very, very vanilla. It looks like they're still in week 1 of camp practice. So it was weird to see that. And I know everybody was going in on DJ. I mean, listen, DJU, he has his faults. We know what he is at this point. I don't think he helped them elevate to win that game, but he definitely wasn't the sole reason that they lost that game. So look at the game from the inside out. When I looked at that game, it looked like 2 different teams in terms of energy level as well. Georgia Tech came out there and believed that they were going to dominate that game from the beginning, and you saw it. You saw the sideline, you saw the coaches. When Brent Key's doing his halftime speeches, everything about that looked like that team believed they were going to win from the heartbeat, and Florida State looked like they were shell-shocked and never quite recovered.
Yeah, I can tell you this straight up about Mike Norvell. I played for the guy, right? Like, I understand how this dude operates early in the season. He had, like, after the opening scripts are crazy, by the way. I think we need to talk about that more, by the way, because there's a lot of people that don't understand how scripted those opening play calls are. And when you get to week 1, they've been scripting those damn things for three weeks, going on 3 weeks. What's going to work? What's going to exploit this defense? But after that opening script, man, that's when Mike Norvell makes his money. And when you get past that, he starts to struggle a little bit if he doesn't have the horses to go. And I think that's the biggest issue with this Florida State team. They don't have the horses, man. They just don't have the dudes. That offensive line's solid, but they're not near what they were cracked up to be. But then outside of that, like, I can tell you, every year that he has had an explosive offense, he has had dudes, like certified NFL, ready to go, explosive play, break tackles, make things happen. Memphis, it was Kenny Gainwell, Darrell Henderson, Tony Pollard. I mean, you just keep going. Antonio Gibson, DeMonte Coxie, Anthony Miller, all these guys at Florida State, Keon Coleman, Jordan Travis, Jaheim Bell, Trey Benson's a hell of a back. Johnny Wilson, like, he has to have those guys to be explosive. He doesn't have that right now. And I think DJU is, like, to your point, It's a symptom of the problem because he's not an explosive quarterback. He's never thrown for 3,000 yards. He's never been some prolific downfield passer, except for that one game he played filling in for Trevor Lawrence against Notre Dame. And what was that, 2020 at this point?
4 years ago.
So, I think he's a symptom of their explosion problem. And that's going to be something he has to get done throughout the rest of the year because I trust him to go make something happen, but he has to have the requisite talent. And if my wide receiver room is led by Malik Benson, he's got some juice, but he's just a guy. You know what I mean? What was it, 16 receptions? All he had at Bama? It's not like he's a proven commodity. So he's going to have to find the guys within that offense who can create big plays for him. It's going to be a long year offensively for them.
Yeah, and another thing I want to highlight is Florida State was without their offensive line coach, and a lot of people believe he's really integral to the play calling process as well. Alex Atkins serving a 1-game suspension for some recruiting violations. So it was definitely something I was monitoring during the game. Like the offensive line looks a little bit out of sync. Some of the creative play calling, maybe, we all know how talented Norvell is, right? But, there could be your offensive line coach in the ear, like, hey, this looks good. Let's run this. Let's get into this second half. People talk about the LSU game last year. Apparently, Alex Atkins was integral in some adjustments they made at halftime when they went and blow LSU out in that second half last year. So that stuck out in my mind. That's a guy that we need to monitor over the course of the season. If he comes back and the offense starts to get it rolling a little bit, you start to see. That could be just gelling. Obviously, the more games you play, you're going to be in a better rhythm. But if they come back and they're looking a lot better, the play calling's a little bit more, let's say, diverse, and the offensive line is gelling, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah, and I'll say Pete Thamel, like everybody's going after him for talking about that D-line. Oh, best D-line in the country. And listen, I never really bought into that. Like you lose Jared Verse and Braden Fiskey off that group last year that wasn't tabbed as the best in the country. It's hard for me to imagine. But Patrick Payton's a talented fella. Marvin Jones Jr. from Georgia, talented fella. I don't want to take anything away from them. But I think what is most impressive about Georgia Tech and what they did in that game is they found a way to neutralize anything that D-line could do. They had no sack. Haynes King's not dropping back. That's not what they want to do this year. But really what they did, man, if you really pay attention, and we can do this, right? Because we can get into the nitty gritty and we'll explain this to people. But what Georgia Tech did out of several different formations, they used a lot of motion. They ran counter. And counter, for those that don't know, you pull around a guard, kick out the D end, either a tight end or a tackle is going to wrap up in there and go get the linebacker, and you're off to the races. But what do you do to bother some of these talented guys that just want to rush upfield? You bring a kick out block at them right in their face. How are you going to handle that type of pressure? How are you going to handle that type of physicality? I thought Georgia Tech did a hell of a job running counter after counter after counter. And Florida State couldn't stop it for less than 3 damn yards every single time, mostly 5-yard plus gains. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Georgia Tech adjusted really well after that first drive. What they did, they backed off those corners, and they played a box game the entire game. They said, DJ, we'll let you throw these little RPO outs and these RPO slants, these quick now routes. We're going to tackle those. We're going to play off, keep everything in front of us. And then on the inside, they just let Kyle Efford, that linebacker that just, man, that is a linebacker right there.
It goes back to what you said too about, the lack of dynamic threats on the outside. When you don't have that guy on the outside or even in the slot that matches up, that gives you a little bit of a nightmare, you can drop back. You can play a little bit more conservative with your DBs. You can mix it up a little bit in the middle because you're not worried about having a guy beat you down the field. There was a couple of plays where, some guys got open and DJ missed the throw, but that's every game. That's just playing football. For the most part, they kept everything in front of them. They tackled very well in the open field. And conversely, when we go back to the Georgia Tech's offense a little bit, Jamal Haynes, I got to give him some credit, man. He played fantastic. The running back for Georgia Tech. He was slippery in space, made some big catches. That third down catch, 3rd and 7, back up on their end zone with 4 minutes left. That essentially, in my eyes, iced the game. We're talking in the group chat because of the clock rules. Once they got that first down, I had no doubts that they were going to go down and get into field goal range at least. And there was essentially no time left because the clock's running. You have to start burning those timeouts quick. It just went downhill from after they got that first down. In my mind, the game was over.
Yep. And pick your poison, by the way. We have to talk about the group chat right quick. Pick your poison, man. We have some real ball knowers in that chat, don't we? My gosh. Yeah, man. And I don't even know how much Georgia Tech made Florida State pick your poison, though. They just did the same thing the entire game. Speaking of that little saying. You knew it was coming at you. You just couldn't stop it.
Like you said, I think it speaks to the lack of premium talent on the team. We heard about all the talent all off season, and it may show itself throughout the season. It's a long season. You got 11 more regular season games, but we didn't see that on display against Georgia Tech team, who a lot of people respected. We thought they were going to be scrappy and tough, but not enough to compete for 4 quarters with the team that supposedly is talented as Florida State.
Yeah, now here's what a little bit more abstract, because we watched a couple other games. Montana State, full-on sickos, just full-on fucking sickos. They ran for 360 yards. I mean, beautiful stuff.
And got put up almost 600 yards of total offense against. If Bronco Mendenhall is a damn good coach. It's funny, Colton Denner, our guy, he was like, I don't go away from that game feeling any less good about Bronco Mendenhall. That New Mexico program has actually improved a lot over the course of the Bronco Mendenhall season. Even though it's been a very small sample size, they looked a lot more confident.
Hell, Montana State didn't even cover the spread. They were 8.5-point favorites. Couldn't even cover the spread because New Mexico was up. New Mexico was up by 17 in that fourth quarter. But okay, this is the biggest thing I want to discuss about just the game in general, because we have new clock rules, right?
Right.
What did you think about them? Because watching the Florida State Georgia Tech game, I watched it. I enjoyed it. I didn't quite notice it until the game, just like how quickly it went. I just started to notice it at that point. But these new clock rules where you're going out of bounds and you don't have the clock stop unless there's 2 minutes left in each half, the 2-minute warning, it's affecting games. There was 7 possessions in the first half, 7 possessions in the second half. And I think my biggest issue is it felt like there was a lot of wasted movement where the referees were not quick enough to get that play clock rolling alongside the clock that continues to roll. Like it felt like after every play, every run play, it would take 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds sometimes to get that play clock rolling. And those little 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, that adds up throughout a game. You can get 3 minutes of lost time. And that's going to be something to watch throughout the year. I hope they get better at it. And they just immediately, as soon as the play is whistled, get that play clock rolling. But that's going to be a problem for some of these tempo teams that want to keep that offense on the field and be explosive.
It's funny you say that. I was, in the press conference yesterday with Rich Rodriguez, and I asked him, I was like, hey, how do you think these rules are going to affect your offense? You run a really up-tempo offense. You want to run the ball. You want to control the game. And he was like, I don't think it's going to affect us at all. So it's funny. You see it affect the game like it did Florida State, Georgia Tech, which had the least amount of possessions in the last 4 years of football. I can't remember the last game that had the same amount of possessions. But in the last 4 years, that was the least amount of possessions that two teams had in a game. So it was interesting to see that. And then talk to Rich Rodriguez, the guy who runs 1 million plays a game. And he's like, it's not going to affect me at all. Only thing I care about is that right before the 2-minute warning, we may have to ice the game a little bit longer and run another play. But he's like, it's not going to affect us at all. So I'm interested to see how it balances out with the spread teams versus the teams that want to ground it like Iowa should be loving this type of game. This type of clock situation, because they can control the game. You get to 17, 20 points. If you're a team like Iowa, you feel good because your defense is going to keep you in the game. You're going to burn clock. So it depends all about your play style and how you're going to adapt to it. So I'm excited to see how it changes.
Man, there's going to be some tempo teams where we're talking about they didn't lose, they just ran out of time. You know what I mean? That's what it's going to feel like.
Well, I was talking to Rich, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, man, I watched a lot of games last year where they went 3 and out because they're going so fast with the tempo. And then the other team, when we played Liberty, it was a problem. It was 13 game going into the fourth. But that fourth quarter, a lot of 3 and outs, and then Liberty's going 6-minute drive, 5-minute drive, and the game's over, and you don't have time to catch up. So interesting concept here.
Like there's some, like, even in the SEC, we're going to watch Tennessee and Ole Miss. Like those teams are going to, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage it, because Lane has been outwardly against this too. He hates it. He is not a fan. He wants as many possessions, as much time on that clock, extend that game out. Let me go score points. That's what he wants.
And, we have to talk about it a little bit. The whole analytics community is going to come in heavy here. So I feel like we're going to see a lot more 4th down plays. We're going to see a lot more teams going forward in some 4th and 6th and 7s that we haven't been accustomed to seeing before. We even saw it in some, I believe it was the Montana State, New Mexico game. I know they had their kicker hurt, right? So they had to go forward a little bit more than they probably wanted to. But it was interesting seeing, hey, the ESPN graphs are telling you, 40% chance we're going to go for it here, because that's what the analytics say. It's going to be interesting to see how teams adapt over the course of the season using that, though.
Yep. Now let's put week 0 in the rear view. I'm going to talk about week 1, and we're going to highlight some matchups we like. We'll sort of go back and forth. I'll go ahead and give my first one out. And this is kind of funny because, like, No ranking next to either of these teams' names. Well, maybe at FCS level, definitely at the FCS level. But I'm going to start with my game to watch, my first game to watch. It's not like the biggest game for like playoff implications or conference winning implications. But this Colorado North Dakota State game is probably going to be on my TV before anything else.
Yeah, man.
This is going to be wild to watch. And the reason I say, obviously, it's coming up on Thursday when this releases, and obviously we record, so we're a little bit behind. But it's going to come up on Thursday. I believe it'll be an ESPN game. But that game is so vital for Deion. Right. It is so vital for Coach Prime, man. Because if he loses that game, can you imagine what starts happening? I mean, he cut off Sean Keeler from the Denver Post from asking questions and all these things. He went after the CBS reporter. People are like trying to make this narrative about, well, he's afraid of the product he's going to put out there. If they open the year by losing or playing real close with this team, that you know how loud it's going to.
Yeah.
And people are going to be hating on this guy even more than they are right this second. It's vital for him to come out and really send a message.
And I think there's more pressure on the offense than the defense. The defense can't get any worse than it was last season. The offense went through a coordinator change mid-season. Everybody loves Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis is now at San Diego State. You have Shador, who's projected to be one of the top quarterbacks off the board. He has to produce like that. And then you spent all this money on the offensive line. You went out and got 5-star Jordan Seam to be your left tackle. You revamped the entire offensive line through the portal. So I think all the pressure is on those guys. And North Dakota State's a scrappy team. They're not the North Dakota State. I want to reiterate this point for people.
You played against them, didn't you, back in the day?
Yeah, I played against them, man. But they aren't that North Dakota State. That North Dakota State could give this team some problems. I think that they've taken a step back in recent years. They're still very talented. They're still making it deep into the playoffs. But South Dakota State and Montana State are what people think North Dakota State still is. North Dakota State's still very respectable. So it's a game that I fully expect the Buffs to go out there and dominate. And if they don't, that's going to be the driving force. Everybody's like, oh, we know who North Dakota State is as identity recognition right now. But if they do struggle or if they do lose this game, that's going to be the point hammer home that, hey, North Dakota State hasn't won an FCS championship in a couple of years. They aren't the team that they're not the team that we're used to seeing. So Deion has to come out there. And I have no doubts about this. This is one that everybody's kind of up in the air about. I have no doubts that they're going to go out there and handle business and cover the spread, which we'll get to later. We'll have some picks up later, but I have no doubt that they're going to go out there and handle business, and it's imperative that they do.
Now, here's what I'll say about this Colorado offense. I don't think people really grasp, like everybody's going to talk about their shortcomings, sure. Right. I don't think people really grasp how good their skill positions are. They're awesome. Like, they are very good. Shador Sanders should be a top 10 pick, one of the first quarterbacks off the board in the 2025 NFL draft. Will Shepard was a hell of a receiver at Vandy. He comes over now to them as a grad transfer. You still have Travis Hunter. And I want to see, like, how a year into this thing, right, at Colorado, I want to see how Prime balances his offensive defensive snaps out. I think there's still some questions about that. But then you still have Jimmy Horn. You're going to have Dallin Hayden here I'm in Memphis right now.
LaJohntay Webster, who's a Florida Atlantic transfer.
Right.
He might be their wide receiver one. He might end up being the guy that leads them in receptions at the end of the year. He's dynamic and twitchy. And, Shador depends on the offensive line situation, but he's going to want to get the ball out quick. That's his MO. It's his MO if you actually watch him, but he wants to get the ball out quick. And if he has to scramble and create plays, he'll do that. Some people say he holds on to the ball too long in some certain situations, which is true, but he's going to get the ball out. And a guy like that who's going to be a safety valve for him and get extra yards after the catch, where he's not having to create and do everything by himself at the quarterback position, is going to be key. So LaJohntay Webster is a guy that I'm really looking forward to breaking out this year on the matches.
But it's all about what are the early returns on this offensive line. And I think more so than anything, like Jordan Seaton, this is a guy who's true freshman, 5-star. Like, you got to step in and be that true. You got to be that 5-star. You got to be that guy that almost looks like a vet year one. And we know how hard that shit is. That's hard to come in as a true freshman, an offensive line in the FBS, playing D1 college football. That is hard for anybody.
Even if you're physically ready, just learning everything. People don't understand how many plays you're going to have to learn. How much, and especially in the Pat Shermer offense. It's not like he's in some quick up-tempo offense where he doesn't have to learn a full.
The wording's NFL style. That's tough.
Yeah, so he's going to have to learn a lot. Good thing for him is that he was an early enrollee. He has been there for a while, so he's probably getting a little bit more comfortable now. But there's nothing like playing under those lights. There's nothing like the game speed. There's nothing like that main stage when you have all those cameras on you and you're excited and it's a full home crowd. I'm sure it's going to be a sellout there. They have crazy fan support. So to see what he looks like under the lights with the pressure, I'm going to be watching him a lot because people don't realize, man, those FCS players, edge rusher and wide receiver skill positions are where the dominant players are at the FCS level. So I think he's going to go up against some pretty talented guys. And it'll be a fun little gauge to see where he is. But like you said, man, huge investment. I know that they say they don't pay their players, but everybody has to pay to play a little bit right now, right? Especially now that caliber, he's not turning down the amount of money that he was getting offered to go play for free. I'll tell you that. But I'm really excited to see how he develops because he has the talent that if he lives up to the billing, he's going to be a guy in 2 or 3 years that we're talking about potentially first round, top of the draft type of talent.
All right, now let's highlight game 2. You go ahead.
My week 1 matchup that I'm really, really excited about is USC versus LSU. And it's just a storyline bonanza. I'm not the biggest Lincoln Riley, I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly fans, but they are 2 of the most consistent coaches in college football. They've proven it, right? But it's time to get over the hump for both of these guys. They're both coming in with more talented rosters than they've had in a while. I know LSU lost their Heisman quarterback, but they're still loaded at the offensive line position. At defensive back, they have some new guys coming in there. They still have the receivers. It's a name that I want people to remember going into this week. CJ Daniels. He's a wide receiver transfer from Liberty University. He's one of the best receivers in the G5 level last year, and now he's going to step into that offense with Nussmeier and those guys and step into a role where he needs to produce. It's not like he's coming to just be one of the guys on the team. They need him to step into a role and fill one of those Brian Thomas Jr., one of those Malik Neighbors type roles for this team and be a 1,000-yard receiver. And I think he has the ability to do it. But other than that, I'm expecting to see a lot of points from LSU. But USC, with the brand new staff, they hired DeAnton Lynn as the defense coordinator. They got Matt Ince from North Dakota State to leave his head coach position to come be a linebackers coach. They got Doug Belk, who was a defensive coordinator candidate at a ton of places to come work there. They got Coach Henderson from the Rams to be their defensive line coach. They revamped that defensive staff about as well as you could hope for. I know they weren't able to keep all the talent they wanted on the defense, but just by coaching alone, that USC defense should be incredibly improved. And that's going to be the thing I'm looking at, that LSU offense versus that USC defense. Which one is going to improve more?
Well, I'll say this, man. Like USC, I don't know. Like very little improvement will feel like a lot. Alex Grinch was trash, brother. Like he was worst, terrible, man. And I don't know if there were naked pictures that he had of Lincoln Riley, but Lincoln was so damn. He just stood by him every step of the way. I don't know what the hell that was about. But I have a question for you, real talk. This quarterback matchups this is one of my favorite quarterback matchups because it's 2 guys who are projected to be ballers. Garrett Nussmeier, Miller Moss. But do we think both of them are going to be that type of guy? I mean, we're talking about I get Lincoln Riley's got the Heisman factory going, but it felt a little different after the Caleb Williams era because Malachi Nelson didn't pan out. He ends up transferring. You have to go to Miller Moss. It doesn't feel like the same level of talent. And Garrett Nussmeier, it's like he's been right on the precipice of being a big-time quarterback for, the last 2 or 3 years. And this is his first opportunity to do it. So, like, how actually good are both of these guys going to be?
I'll start with Miller Moss. I have a lot of confidence in Miller Moss, not just because it's Lincoln Riley's system, right? Everybody that's played in it has been at least solid and serviceable to some degree. But he gained the weight over the offseason. That was one of my biggest concerns with him. Is he going to be able to take the hits, right? Just stay healthy. I think he has plenty of arm talent. I think he has plenty of experience. Guys that stay in the system and stay in the culture for a long time, to me, are more apt to come in and have success than any other players. He's been there from the beginning. He's a guy that always wanted to play for USC. I remember watching USC has a podcast called Almost Pro, and I remember watching him last year. He was so happy to be at USC. This was before he ever saw it down. This is when Malachi was still there, and Malachi was still projected to be the guy that took over. He talked about how much he loved USC and how much he wanted to be there. And to me, that means something. Guys that want to play for universities these days, guys that want to stick it out and learn and develop and become the best. And then when he got his opportunity to play in that bowl game against Louisville, and I'm not going to put too much stock into that because it was
he balled. He balled now.
He balled out. I mean, and it looks like he was so comfortable. More than anything, right? He's going to have some times where he struggles. That's just quarterback. But he looked so comfortable and in command of the team and the offense. He knew when to take shots. He knew when he needed to chuck the ball away. He knew when to create and make a little bit of play with his legs if he had the ability to. to me, that said a lot about where he was, and that's just development. You don't see a lot of guys stick it out and get better and learn. That looked like a guy that had been kicking people's ass in scout team for a bunch of years, and when he got a chance, he was never going to let it go. So that's how I feel about Miller Moss. There's no lack of talent there. They're going to have a really good receiving core again this year. Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, Zachariah, in my opinion, is one of the more dynamic, or maybe the most dynamic player in the country. You got Woody Marks, who transfers from Mississippi State to come be the running back there. They have a wealth of talent there, so talent's not going to be the problem. And I think he's just so comfortable, he's going to be fine. And then Nussmeier, a little bit of the same. He's a guy that has been there before. He's played in some ball games. He has some experience. He just come off a bowl game where he had a fantastic performance as well. And there's no shortage of talent there. If you're talking about LSU, he's not going to have to worry about that offensive line. Offensive line is arguably the best in the country. He still has Tyron Lacey. He has C.J. Daniels. He still has some other guys that are there. I have no problem. I have no doubts about either one of these guys being good. I'm not saying they're going to be draftable or
Heisman
type caliber, but in terms of being the starting quarterback and being the guy for their team, I think these guys are both going to be pretty solidified after this week.
Man, but it feels like Garrett Nussmeier has been like a myth for a while. Yeah. Like he's gotten a little bit of time, and you see some good things, and we know he's the son of the coach, and everybody's been trying to project, oh, this is going to be that guy. He's going to be a dude.
In 2022, they were calling for him. 2022, they were calling for him to take Jaden Daniels' job. The first half of the Florida State game last year, people were calling for him to take Jaden Daniels' job. So at least in the LSU circle, they've been waiting for this guy to be the guy for a long time.
I swear it's unbelievable. I'm gonna go. We'll do one more game each. I'm gonna go Clemson UGA. I'm really ready to see this. I'm gonna take. Quite frankly, I'm taking UGA. I'm taking Georgia minus 13.5. I just don't like what Dabo did this offseason, the way he's been acting. I mean, we're talking about Dion cutting off reporters. This dude won't even take questions via phone call on his damn coach's show because Tyler from Spartanburg broke his damn soul last year by asking him, well, how do you feel making $11.4 million and you only have us at 4-4? You know, he broke his damn spirit last year. But not hitting the portal for any plug and play pieces, even though you need some weapons on the outside, probably need some O-line help. Although I think Matt Luke is their offensive line coach. I think he'll help solidify, bring that thing together. I don't think people understand. And I know coming from us, people are like, man, in one ear, out the other. These dudes, some offensive line, fat ass offensive lineman. But offensive line coach means something. It really does. Matt Luke, I think, will help that. Defense, I still think they got some talent on that side of the ball. But the biggest thing for me, I just want to see if Clemson is of that caliber because that ACC is wide the hell open. You just saw what happened to Florida State.
Yeah,
Clemson is that next team up. Show me.
Clemson.
Show me.
I think I'm with you, right, about Georgia covering the spread, but I don't think it's going to be in a performance that's not respectable. I think it's going to be a 34-17 type of game where UJ pulls away late. But I'll tell you, I think Clemson's defensive line is going to keep this game close early on. I could be dead wrong, and UJ could come out with Carson Beck and just light them up, right? But Peter Woods, DeMonte Capehart are two of the best interior.
Yes.
People have just made up their minds that Michigan has the best interior defense line in the country. And if I had to pick between the two, I might lean Michigan, but Peter Woods and DeMonte Capehart are the next best. If they're going
Peter Woods is crazy.
Peter Woods is crazy. Capehart's crazy. They have some more depth in the defensive line. So I think that defensive line is going to keep it close early. And UGA has some new guys there in the middle. I mean, Seth Van Pran graduating and going to the NFL. Jared Wilson, the center for UGA, watch out for him, number 55. He's the guy that I like. He stepped in for Seth Van Pran when he had an ankle injury last year against Kentucky. And in that one half of football he played, he looked damn good. So I'm interested to see how he's going to, translate as the full-time starter. But it's one hell of an introduction to be your first start full-time to be against those guys from Clemson. But I just think Georgia's too talented depth-wise. They have a wealth of talent at the wide receiver position. They have running backs. I know their running backs have some injury right now, but they have 6 or 7 of them. When you have 6 or 7 guys that can step in and be serviceable, you don't need them to come in there and run for 100 yards. I need 30 from this guy, 30 from this guy. Just got to come in and block. They still have Oscar Delp, tight end, Benjamin Urosic, the transfer from Stanford, who's one of the better tight ends in the country. I think Georgia has too much for them, but I think Clemson is going to be a little bit better than people are going to give them credit for. And that may not be good enough to win this game, but it might be good enough to win the ACC.
I'm with you, and here's my thing. I think Cade Klubnik takes a step in the right direction this year. I think you actually 100%. See who Cade Klubnik is because I think after last year, he handed the offense over to to Garrett Riley, who did an unbelievable job at TCU 2 years ago, got them to a national championship. But there was still those hands of Dabo on it, right?
Right.
I think we're starting to like get to that point where Dabo's going to take it. Okay, Garrett, we paid you this money. Handle the business right here. You have Cade Klubnik a year older. This offensive line should be, like I said, a little bit more meshed together now that you have Matt Luke over there. I just think that this is all going to come together to make Cade Klubnik sort of the center focus of that offense. And I've never really questioned his talent. Like, he can throw the ball downfield when he wants to. He can use his legs when he wants to. It's just been about what's surrounding him and what plays are being called. Are you being vanilla? Are you just trying to control the game? Or are you really trying to light it up on the offensive side of the ball, which they haven't really been able to do since Trevor Lawrence? I think this is going to be a step in the right direction offensively for Clemson, which is why, like, when it comes to the ACC, I'll put them at the top. I'll pick them as a winner right now. But I think this may be the next game you bring up. I think there's another team in the ACC that I really want to see. Hey, can you take that step? Can you be back?
Listen, we'll go ahead and get to that game. Miami versus Florida is one hell of a week one matchup for both of these programs because this is a must win for both of these programs. Mario Cristobal at the head coach position. We already know about Billy Napier, right, and where he stands and the hot seat he's on. But Mario Cristobal cannot start this year with the loss. He can't. The investment that they made, they went out and got Cam Ward. Me and you love this guy. Cam Ward, quarterback formerly of Incarnate Word, played last season at Washington State, had a really good year. Now he's a starting quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. Went out and got Damian Martinez, who a lot of people feel like is the best running back in the country from Morgan State. So you went out and you bolstered the running back room. You have a fantastic offensive line. You have a ton of talent on the defense. The Malioga brothers are two talented guys. You have the right tackle and the linebacker, Francisco Malioga. I know the younger brother gets all the credit, but, man, look up this guy, the Francisco Malioga, the linebacker from Miami. He is talented. He's going to be a guy that's going to be all over the field. So they have the talent. Talent's not the issue. The experience from the coach is not the issue. He's well experienced now. Even if you wanted to say he had a small sample size at Oregon and Florida International, he's been a head coach for a while now. He knows what he's doing, should know what he's doing. He's in the position where he has a wealth of talent, a great schedule. If he can get past this game, they have a schedule that I think favors them a lot. This is a must-win for Miami more than it is for Florida, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, dude, you have everything you need. It's like a almost Ohio State light type thing going on with Miami right now, where it's like, brother, we've given you a bunch of money. You have recruited your ass off, but it's time to get over the hump. It's time to show me and not tell me about all of these pieces you have. Don't freaking run the ball late in the game, fumble the ball, and let somebody go beat you. You know, like, don't do these dumbass things late in games to blow games and completely leave your season sort of up waiting in the wings. I just want to see. I want to see what this Miami team has before I really crown Clemson. But this game's going to be really fun to watch. I think Florida, they're better than what their record will show at the end of the year. That's what I'll say. I think Billy Napier is going to get fired just because they have 8 separate top 25 teams they're playing against this year. And down the stretch of the season, I just don't see them winning a game. Like, their last 6 games, it's like, are they going to be 1-5? Like, that's the best you can almost hope for against that slate of games. But I think they'll be better than their record shows. And I think Miami will be the first test for them. And if they can win this one, and if they can steal one of those last 6 games, maybe you could save bowl eligibility, but it's going to be really damn hard. That's probably the hardest schedule I have seen for a team, really, in my lifetime.
There's no doubt.
I talk to David Cobb every Monday, Wednesday, Friday over for my show for 92.9 ESPN, and it's just like he was doing all the research and went through sort of since basically the 1950s or 60s, and he even had it ranked as the hardest schedule in the country, and that's all anybody can talk about. And it's kind of funny because, like, Graham Mertz was solid last year, wasn't prettiest, but he was solid.
That was going to be one of my points. I mean, they're going to have solid quarterback play, and if it's any consolation prize, they might suck this year. They may not do well, but if Graham Mertz plays his ability, at least you're going to get another year for DJ Lagway, the 5-star quarterback who comes in. He's highly touted. That could be a little bit of a silver lining or a little golden pot at the end of the rainbow. If you can have Graham Mertz play to his ability level and be the starter for the year, get the bowl eligible, in my opinion, that would be a win. and then get an extra year of DJ Lagway, that should be like the most realistic, best case scenario for Florida this season. Go 6-6,
Yep.
get an extra year for DJ Lagway, and have Graham Mertz play to his ability. And then you still have a
and
year
keep
with
him
DJ.
around. If Billy Napier gets fired, you got to keep DJ around though. Like we know how that
You
works.
have to do whatever you can. And Trey Wilson is going to be one of the better receivers in the country this year. Forget the SEC, in the country this year. He's talented. He's dynamic. So they're going to have a couple of game-breaking players. But I don't think they have the depth. I don't think they have the coach from top to bottom to survive the schedule. And it's just brutal. They couldn't have crafted a tougher schedule. I know a little bit of it is just playing in the SEC, but the non-conference schedule is just brutal as well. I mean, you still have the obligated Florida State game, and then the closest game that you're going to get to a gimme is the Samford game. But that's a really good FCS program who's been giving people hell when they go play these FBS programs. So that's not a gimme either. So they have a really tough schedule. But like I said, the goal should be bowl game, and that should be realistic. Anything else seems like just dreams at this point.
Yeah. Now something's going to be a part of the show every single week. We got to give the people what we want. What they want, I should say, and also what we want, because I know how to talk some Memphis Tigers, but we're going to do some home team talk every week. Kyron with Jacksonville State, me with Memphis. Now, I'm going to let you start with Jacksonville State, but I have to do this really quick because Kenny Stubbs is behind with a little picture of a midfield logo that I have to throw out here that I don't know how I like it. I know you have told me that a lot of the old folks around Jacksonville really love the ass-kicking chicken look here.
Listen,
we got the little spurs on the leg. I said it looked like FCS Southeast from NCAA 14, but that's just me.
It's classic, man. It's classic. People love it. It's ass-kicking chickens, AKT. You'll hear it all the time if you ever come to Jacksonville. You watch us play. There'll be a lady in the stands with this T-shirt on wearing a cock hat. We have those all the time. This is classic. This is Jacksonville State. It's nostalgic. Everybody loves nostalgic. It's a small town, small college town. This is what people love, and I love it because it reminds me of my playing days. It reminds me of when we used to get those special-made T-shirts and everything. So I love this. I think it's great for the community. It's something to rally behind, and it looks cool. It's different. Nobody else has something like this.
It's just a basic look, though, right? Like the color scheme, you literally just have red and white. It's a basic-ass look.
But it's from 60 years ago, so that's why it's nostalgic. It's classic. If this is the worst we could do, I think this is really good. For
60 years ago, you're telling me they have the same color palette that they did this right now here in 2024. I mean, man, I don't know. I saw this and I'm like, damn, that just, for me, it just didn't hit the same. I like the old JSU logo.
I liked it too. It was cool, but I think it's cool, man. You jump up to the FBS ranks. We have a new stadium. We took out the old visitor box. We put a new visitor box there. Brand new facility, just crap ground on. So I think everything else is changing around the stadium, and this is something to kind of keep us, reminiscent for the old people. And I think people appreciate it over time. But you got to go watch a game. We'll go to a game.
I need to. Have you ever seen the Liberty Bowl, the shape it's in right now? By the way, speaking of renovated stadium, buddy, we're calling it the Liberty Hole this year. Oh my God! It's like took out the entire press box, the whole home side, and they cut it out. It's completely cut out. We only have one sliver of seats below the old concourse, and it's all seat backs. But there is a big ass hole in the stadium because they're doing the renovations right now. It's gonna be badass when they're done, but right now it's crazy. It's like you have all these expectations for this team this year, like potential college football playoff, group of 5 representative, like that whole thing. And it's like, damn, they're gonna be in front of 32,000 people. We're gonna be fighting over tickets because there's not gonna be enough seats in the damn place.
Yeah, is it going to affect the UFL team at all?
No, they ain't filling out 32,000 seats, brother. Memphis Showboats ain't getting that done. They had the first pick in the UFL draft. But go ahead. So Jacksonville State this year, one thing that I find interesting, I just want to bring this up because this is just a wrinkle that I have never heard. And I know Rich Rod's crazy, and he runs the hell out of the ball. He uses his quarterback legs. We've seen that for a long time. Did you really tell me he's thinking about playing 3-4 quarterbacks in a game?
Yeah. So I went to the presser yesterday.
This is not like a rollover team.
Yeah, it's just his philosophy, man. He says 2 for sure. He's going to play Logan Smothers and Tyler Huff, transfer from Furman. And there's a transfer from UConn named Zion Turner. There's another young kid named Caden Creel from my hometown, played in my high school. And there's another kid that's 5 deep now. So he believes in all 5 of these kids. He's going to play the first 2, Smothers and Huff, for sure. We'll probably see Turner if those 2 struggle. And if Turner struggles, I wouldn't doubt if we saw Creel or one of the other kids. But Rich Rod is dead serious. He's played up 3 quarterbacks last year. I believe it was the home game against, it was either Liberty or Western Kentucky. But he played 4 quarterbacks in the game. One got hurt, but he played 4 quarterbacks. If you're struggling, he's not going to sit there and let that stall the offense out. He's going to pull another one in. It's interesting. But overall, I'm really excited to see the team play this year. Offensive line is going to be the strength of the team, leaning on the All-American Clay Webb. It's crazy to see a guy from a G5 get first-team All-American love. He was All-American last year, but with the Associated Press, Sport News, PFF, all those, comes back this year, and I'm thinking that they're going to give it to, the Alabamas, the LSU guys. No, the kid from Jacksonville State is getting first-team All-American love on the main stage, so he's going to lead the offensive line. Another kid, Will Osteen, is going to be the left tackle. Brock Roby. Those are guys that are going to carry this team. And they have a running back by committee. I mean, there was 4 guys last year that ran for over 500 yards that weren't a quarterback. So a ton of talent at the running back position. The defense is under construction a little bit. We lost our defensive coordinator, Zach Alley, to Oklahoma. So our last 2 defensive coordinators, we had Coach Todd Bates, who was coach with Jacksonville State, and Zach Alley, and Coach Will Hall. Like literally,
I remember Will Hall
at Oklahoma. Yeah, the coach staff at Oklahoma, the defensive coaching staff, is literally just the coaching staff from when I was there in 2014 to 2016. So a ton of talent. We lost a defensive end to Ole Miss, Chris Hardy. Lane Kiffin snatched him up out of the portal. So the defense is going to be under construction a little bit. I'm interested to see how they're going to react with the new scheme. But they do have some talented guys up front. They do have some returning guys in the defensive back group. The linebackers are going to be a new group that we're going to have to see how they flesh things out. But I think they're going to be a team that competes for the Conference USA. I mean, the only other team I see really giving them any trouble is Liberty. Obviously, Liberty's a fantastic program, projected by most to be the G5 representative in the playoff, along with the Memphis and Boise State type teams. But I think we're going to be very talented. I think 9-3 is realistic. I think that's the type of schedule result I'm looking for. I think if they start fast this week against Coastal, to get past a test like Coastal, you don't really have many teams that scare you on the schedule until you get to the Liberties and those types of teams. So I think Jacksonville State's going to be very good, top to bottom. 9-3 is my prediction for the regular season.
Yeah, so I'm right here with like 10-2 or above for Memphis, and I think 10-2 sort of bottom them out because I mean Seth Hennigan, Rock Taylor, Demir Blankham, see that running back room's crazy, brother. And like it was kind of weird this week in Memphis. Like Mario Anderson Jr. comes over from South Carolina. Sutton Smith's a dude that's been on campus for a while, but he's like that. Like Mike Norvell does a tailback when he lists his depth chart, a tailback and a halfback. Halfback's in between the tackles, runner, tailback's the Tony Pollard type. If he were doing it if Silverfield did it this way, tailback would be Sutton Smith, Mario Anderson Jr. would be the halfback. Mario Anderson is going to be running with his head on fire. Sutton Smith can split out of the backfield, get into the slot, throw him some now routes, get him out in open space, make some things happen. But I also think based on what the OC said, Tim Cramsey, he'll be able to get in between the tackles a little bit more than he has in the past because he was one of those guys, how in high school you have those guys that they're just so damn athletic. It's like bounce everything, run down the sideline, touchdown. That's sort of what he did through the first 3 years here. That's what he wanted to do because he loves open space. But now he's starting to follow his track a little bit more and realize it helps him. Once you get to that second, third level, sure, get outside, turn the Jets on, go score a touchdown. But you can't do that off the top. The one concern would be defense with them. But I think the new DC, Jordan Hankins, held Iowa State in the Liberty Bowl to 0 yards rushing. He's going to run more of a 3-3-5. And I think that's more out of necessity than really than what he wants to do because he's going to be multiple. He comes from UT Martin, so he's used to working with lesser talent, which I like because they got rid of a guy named Matt Barnes who came from Ohio State, and he's used to 4 and 5 stars. But Jordan Hankins, he has it listed as a 3-3-5, and really I think that's because they probably have the best linebacking core in the group of 5 or the AAC in general. Chandler Martin was a first-team All-AAC guy. They bring in Elijah Herring from Tennessee. Right. And this dude was the leading tackler for Tennessee last year. Got a guy by the name of Matt Hudson, who was the leading tackler for Harvard last year. He's a graduate transfer, smart guy, obviously. And he comes over. He's going to play the other linebacker position. The reason they're doing this 3-3-5 look is because they don't have a pass rush. Like that's the concern that you have with this. But we've seen 3-3-5. If you have good linebackers and blitzing linebackers, guys that can walk up, win their one-on-ones, like you can still get pressure after the quarterback. But you just have this talented linebacking core, a defensive line that's a little bit suspect, and you have to sort of hide it that way. But I'll say this: historical significance about a 3-3-5 at Memphis. Last time a 3-3-5 was run at Memphis was 2014 when we had a really good defense with Barry Odom. Barry Odom, who probably will be a guest on this show in the coming weeks, he ran a 3-3-5 at Memphis, probably the best defense we've had in this nice run. You know, that was the Miami.
We've seen 3-3-5 be successful. TCU just made a national championship with it a couple years ago.
Right.
I mean, we saw Iowa State. I mean,
in the Big 12, you have to, though. You have to. Like Iowa State, Oklahoma State do it the best right now, I think, in the Big 12. But I don't think the AAC really – they don't have any – Preston Stone's no longer there with SMU. Chandler Rogers, the quarterback from North Texas, is off to Cal. Like, you don't really have these prolific passers anymore. So, like, a 3-3-5 isn't necessary, but still – it can work against any scheme as long as you run it the right way, dial it up the right way. So we'll see how it all plays out. But we're going to go ahead.
Before we get off Memphis, I have to shout out my guy Larry Smith, wide receiver coach in Memphis. He was my wide receiver coach, quarterback coach here at Oklahoma State when I play here. So shout out to my boy Larry, man.
He's been developing. We got some development here, man. He's got a young dude by the name of Keondae Henry.
Alabama kid.
I want to see what he can do with Keondae Henry, man. That dude. Okay. He's a 4-star that they got last year. But Rock Taylor, Demir, kept around Kobe Drake. He's been doing a hell of a job with those guys. Hell of a job. Now let's go ahead and grab our first break on G5 Classified. And when we come back, we're going to really get into our group of 5 predictions. We're probably going to go fast, probably going to go quick, but we'll get you best conference, best team, our group of 5 college football playoff representative, and then stick around. We're going to make you some money and get you some picks, but that'll be on the other side. Stick around.
Stuff was hard, man. I was trying to make ends meet. I remember this like it was yesterday, man. It was a Friday night. I came back in from working a long little day of work. I came back to my crib and I had an eviction notice on my door. I just prayed that night and I'm like, God, whatever you want me to be doing, if I'm doing the right thing, if this camera is the right thing, like just let me know. I woke up that next morning, man. I had a text from John like, yo, has anybody signed you? Well, I'm finna sign you. And it was like literally that next morning, man, I dropped my phone. And my mom's house was probably 3 blocks away. I run over to my mom's house. I show her the message. She starts going crazy. She's like, my prayers are working. And I was just like, Mom, I prayed all last night. I was on a flight to Memphis 2 days later. And it's just like Memphis is definitely love out there, man. So I love it. You know what I'm saying? At first, I was a little skeptical. I ain't going to lie. Definitely was a little skeptical at first about the M. But, man, it's definitely been love.
Tune into the No Bluffing Podcast with your hosts, Christian Ingram and Evan Hayes, every Monday at 12 p.m. only on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
And Memphis's first depth chart was released. There were some very interesting things on here. Give me some of your highlights, some of the things that you saw or took away from the initial depth chart.
I am glad a lot of transfers won their position battles.
It's a good sign.
That is what I like. First thing, just looking at it, loved it. But all these transfers that you're like, okay, this is a bunch of experience. You need them to make immediate impacts. Seems like they're going to have the opportunity to do that. And it seems like during fall camp, they separated themselves. And that to me sort of highlights how I feel about the way this depth chart shook out. There are some surprises we'll get to, but I'm glad to see the most experienced, seemingly most talented players won out and left no doubt that they are starting at their particular position.
10 transfers from this class are starters.
Tune into On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right, we're back in G5 Classified Episode 1, and we actually have to get to the G5 portion of this show. And really what I want to break down sort of one by one here is give our predictions on the year, Kai. And I think there's going to be some, how do I put it? In each of these conferences, whether it's Sun Belt, AAC, Mountain West, CUSA, I think we're going to have a little bit of them sort of cannibalizing each other. But I want to start with conference. What is the best group of 5 conference this year. I think it's kind of hard because the AAC has had that stronghold, but they've lost, 4 teams in the past 2 years. So it's just been tough for them to keep that stronghold.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And I think if you look at the quality of the Sun Belt, top to bottom, I think they might be the best G5 conference, top to bottom. If you look at teams like, you look at other conferences like Conference USA, it's really just Liberty, Jacksonville State, and Western Kentucky on a good year. The AAC has had their fair share of dominant teams, but I think top to bottom, week in and week out, if you're talking about competitive G5 conferences, I think you got to go Sun Belt this season.
Okay, I think I'm going to roll with the Mountain West. I'm not going AAC. I think the top end of the AAC is probably the best.
Okay.
Like when you look at Tulane and you look at Memphis and you look at UTSA and potentially South Florida, like I think all of those teams, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the Group of 5 representative in the college football playoff if everything goes right.
Yeah.
But I think top to bottom, I'm going to go Mountain West. And I think mostly I say that because I think you have some teams that had some good years last year. Boise State, Fresno State. I know they lost Jeff Tedford because of health issues for like the 5th time, but that's something they can get over. Mikey Keene still at quarterback. San Diego State now with Sean Lewis, I think could be back up at least a tad bit. Utah State, I think can have a little bit of juice. They did lose Blake Anderson, but I'll get to why I think they could be okay. UNLV, my guy Barry Odom, 9-win season last year. Like I know they lost Jade Mayava though, which is going to be really hard to place, but you still have Ricky White there. Ricky White on the outside. Replaced
him with one of my favorite transfers this year, Matthew Sluka, who was a quarterback from Holy Cross in the FCS ranks. And I have been saying for years, I can't believe somebody hasn't poached this guy yet. But
when I really just look top to bottom, I like the quarterback play the most. I do. Yeah. Braden Shager at Hawaii is kind of underrated. Air Force, I know it's not like a quarterback, but Air Force, Troy Calhoun, always going to be solid. Boise State, you're going to have Maddox Badson, and he was really solid last year till he got hurt. Colorado State, even though I don't believe he was I don't think Kansas State approached him to pay him $600,000. I think Braden Fowler Nicolosi's pretty damn solid. Mikey Keene was one of the best quarterbacks in the Group of 5 last year at Fresno State. You like the guy at UNLV, Matthew Sluka. Utah State, I know that this guy's boring, but I think it was more of a problem with where he was playing. He played at Iowa. Spencer Petras at Utah State may actually be okay. Like it may actually work out for the most part. But I just think the quarterback play mixed with some of the things we saw last year, I think it's all going to work out in the Mountain West favor. I'm not saying that the Group of 5 representatives going to come out of the Mountain West, but I think top to bottom, that's what I'd look at.
That's fair. My thing with the Sun Belt, why I believe that it's the best conference for G5 is just the depth of success. I mean, you look at a team like App State, Coastal Carolina, James Madison, Marshall, even Old Dominion has come along in the last couple of seasons. You look at Arkansas State, Louisiana Lafayette, South Alabama, Texas State with DJ Kinney, and that team has come on a lot. Troy has been one of the better G5 programs the last 5 or 6 years. If you look at the depth from top to bottom, I think it's the hardest conference to play in and week out, just because of the defense, the line play. And it's funny, I said that because they had a bad bowl season last season. They had a ton of teams make it to bowls, and a lot of those teams lost. So I think they're still the best top to bottom. And it's funny, like you talk about the AAC, and they just never registered in my brain. Like when you said best G5 conferences, we're talking about it. They probably third when I thought about the best G5.
No, they're behind, man. They've lagged behind. Yeah. Like these additions they made were trash, Kai. Can we admit it?
Yeah.
You got listen, I love the military like tie-in with Navy and Army, but brother, they're losing steam. Air Force is the one who has steam out of military academies, and then like Rice, North Texas, like these teams, Florida Atlantic. It's just not. It's not what it once was. Charlotte. I mean, Poggy said earlier this week that he's lost 50% of his starters on offensive defense because he worked
impossible.
I'm like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Like, take it easier on these guys. Also, can I say this about the Fun Belt? And this is more local here. Be on the lookout for Arkansas State. Like, I'm not saying they're going to be unbelievable, but they were a 7-win team last year. They found something with their quarterback, Jalen Rayner. Like that dude's got some juice to him. And is it Jaquez Cross is their running back, and he was pretty solid last year. I think they have an offense that can get going, but man, Butch Jones. It's taken too long for him to get anything going, and he has made the wrong decision. Like Jalen Rayner should have been your starter game 1 last year, and he wasn't.
Yeah,
I remember watching his first game. Yeah, I remember watching
That was one of
Memphis
the most
versus them
sad
on
press
the
conferences.
road.
Oh man, it's
It
so
was
sad. I felt
nasty.
bad for the Bush after that, but
It was
definitely a team to
nasty.
watch. James Madison's another team. How are you going to react and respond after Kurt Cincinnati leaves and goes
Yep.
to Indiana? I'm really interested to see how they're going to respond because that's been a team from the FCS ranks. Then immediately when they jumped up to the BCS level, FBS level now, showing my age there, they have been competitive from day one. So I'm interested to see, can they keep it going? Can they produce the same amount of heroics in terms of competing with those Power 5 conferences? They weren't just out there playing good G5 level, right? They went and beat a Virginia Tech team last season. So they went and played with some of the not better P5 teams, but they competed at a level that we didn't think they would compete so fast. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can maintain that standard because that's a team that I think has the ability to maybe win another 10 games this season.
All right, now we have to get into our college football playoff representative from the Group of 5 because that's going to be available. And I think most people are picking from Boise State, Liberty, Memphis. I'll say this. I'll go first. Best team. And I'm not going to say this is going to be the Group of 5 representative. I have a different pick, and it honestly hurts my heart that I have a different pick. I think the best team's Memphis in the Group of 5 ranks. I just truly do. It's not me being a homer. It's just like you have all these returning guys. When you look at their depth chart, there's 13 transfers they've gotten from last year or this year that are starting. That shows that you've done an unbelievable job on the transfer portal, and your talent that you're going to get is well paid with the FedEx money, and they're ready to make an impact now. I think it says something when you get transfers and they start and they play immediately. That means they were ready to go. So I just think like they are the most talented and probably the most athletic team in the Group of 5. But my problem is their schedule is just hard, bro. Like they have 5 road games. You have Navy, you have Florida State on the road. You're going to have USF on the road. You're going to have UTSA on the road, Tulane on the road. Like all your hardest games are on the road. So like I just think they'll be tripped up by one of those games. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth of the matter. I think my Group of 5 rep for the college football playoff, I'm going to have to go with Liberty. And the reason I say that, buddy, their schedule's easy. I think they have a chance to slip up against App State, maybe. Jacksonville State, maybe. But Jacksonville State has to go to them to play this year.
Right.
So, but other than that, let's just go down the schedule. Campbell at New Mexico State, UTEP, East Carolina, at App State. That's tough. FIU, Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky. We'll see. And then at Sam Houston. It just feels like Caden Salter, Jamie Chadwell, what they have going for them, the talent they have, it just feels like they're the more talented team against any team they match up against this year.
Yeah, and I think I'm right on board with you. I think Liberty has the easiest road. But after the performance in the Fiesta Bowl last season, I don't know if it's going to hurt them or not. They may be in a situation where they run the table, but a 12-1 team maybe beats them out. I mean, I think that if a Boise State goes 12-1, because I don't think they're going to go beat Oregon, right? I think they could be competitive, make it a ball game. But other than that, I don't see many teams on Boise State's schedule that I would pick to beat them, even with them being on the road for a lot of these games. At UNLV, it's a potentially tough game for them. Other than that, I don't see many games on their schedule. They have Oregon State at home this year. Oregon State roster was depleted from the transfer portal. They have a new coach coming over after Johnson Smith left to go to Michigan State. I don't see many teams that I would pick over them right now. Maybe in the Mountain West Championship game, you have to play a team twice. But I think they probably stumble to Oregon, right? They'll lose to that team. But if they go 12-1 through the rest of that schedule with some of those teams on the schedule like a UNLV, you still have Wyoming on the schedule, which is probably going to be an 8-9 win team at the end of the season. And then you still have, at the end of the season, an Oregon State game, which, who knows, Oregon State might be a bowl-eligible team. If they're even bowl-eligible, that's a quality win for a G5 program at the end of the season. So I think Boise State, whoever's playing quarterback, right? I mean, I know there's been a big quarterback controversy with them, but Ashton Jeanty is, in my opinion, I watched them all. I've spent all the time watching them all. I think he's the best running back in college football. And I think at minimum, he's going to keep them in every game they play this year, even against Oregon. I like their offensive line. They're talented and experienced there. I truly believe Boise State's going to go 12-1 in the regular season. 11-1 in the regular season, and then win the Mountain West Championship game, be 12-1 at the end of the year, and I think they'll be the representative.
Okay, hear you. Now, Group of 5 game of the week. Do you have one picked out? I mean,
I'm going homer pick here. I'm going Jacksonville State.
I think that's fair. That was one of my potential picks.
Only because it's just such an important game to start the year off. Two teams, both coming off of bowl appearances. You have Coastal Carolina, who has a very established history at the G5 level already. Jacksonville State came in, become the first team in FBS history to win a bowl game in their first season at the FBS level. Can you replicate it? Can you match it again? It's a Thursday night game. Kind of get to share the spotlight with Dion and those guys out there when they play North Dakota State. Who can win that game is going to propel them through the rest of the season. And I think it's going to be a big game for Rich Rod to establish his validity. Like, hey, we're here. We're not going anywhere. And it's a must-win game, in my opinion, for Jacksonville State. So that's my game of the week for the G5 level. And I think it's going to build momentum for G5s, right? Those midweek games, you get the Conference USA, you get the MACtion. I think those are going to start to become even more popular among college football fans.
All right. Now, mine's going to be a little bit off the board, and it really has to do with Boise State and how they're going to react to going down south to Georgia Southern, right? They're going to have to deal with all that. And I have to say, it's going to be Boise State. They're 13-point favorites on the road against Georgia Southern. Now, people will say Georgia Southern's trash, man. That program, who gives a damn? Well, they have a quarterback by the name of J.C. French, who originally came to the University of Memphis, scholarship guy, decent player. And he's going to start for them. And I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be a pretty solid player. But I do want people to remember who's coaching Georgia Southern now, Clay Helton. In his first couple of years, he's gotten them back to at least a respectable level. They won 6 games last year, got to a bowl game, ended up losing. So I fully expect Boise State to handle business, but it could get tricky. Like that, don't sit here and act like coming down south this early in the year is not going to take its toll on Boise State, who has to deal with Boise, Idaho all the time. So I think you need to pay attention to that game. But I do agree with you. Jacksonville State and Coastal, probably when we talk about competition in the group of 5 this week, that's the one. That's the one we're going to have to pay attention to. Could be a game in the fourth quarter, whereas Boise State could be a game. Boise State and Georgia Southern could be a game in the fourth quarter. I'd sort of bet Boise State there. All right, now let's get to our picks before we get up out of here. Let's start with our lock. Now, a lock is just anything minus the points. I'll start with mine. I'm going to go Houston minus the 2.5 versus UNLV. And they're at home. I like Donovan Smith. I think, having a guy like Willie Fritz leading that program as opposed to Dana Holgerson is going to do wonders for them even in year one. So I'm going to go ahead and take Houston minus the 2.5 against UNLV, who has to replace a quarterback. I know they have Matthew Sluka, and he'll be pretty solid. But at the same time, it's going to be an interesting one to watch. It's a Big 12 versus a Mountain West matchup. I'm taking Big 12.
I like that one. I think I'm going to go Georgia with the points against Clemson. That feels really safe to me. It feels like if I'm going to be, taking a little bit of a risk, I want to bet with the talent. So I'm going to bet with the talent, take Georgia with the spread there, plus with the points. And another one I'll throw out there for fun, Alabama, West Kentucky. I'll take the over. It's 59.5, but I truly believe Alabama's going to score a ton of points.
There we go.
I think West Kentucky is good enough on offense. They have TJ Finley at quarterback.
TJ Finley.
They can make some things happen. That spread, that up-tempo, they're getting the ball out quick. I think they can score 14, 17 points, and I expect Alabama to score a bunch. So if you're betting type and you like the points, I like the over. 59.5 for Alabama, West Kentucky.
And life's too short to bet unders, brother. I can say that. It's just it hurts. Although the clock rules. The clock rules may affect a lot of over-under bet. And I bet the lines are going to show that too. I bet the lines are going to show that. So it may all even out. Now, shock. This is a team you like plus the points. Now, mine's doesn't. It's not like a general shock. Like Notre Dame goes on the road and beats A&M, no one's going to be surprised. They're the number 7 team in the country playing the number 20 team in the country. But I do think there's some things that favor A&M in this game. Mike Elko against his old quarterback, Riley Leonard. I think Connor Wigman, is a really good player. You're at home. We know that A&M Kyle Field can be a tough place to play. I just think Notre Dame can control the line of scrimmage better. I think Riley Leonard is going to throw a little bit of a loop to that A&M defense with the legs that he can use. I still think he can push the ball downfield pretty comfortably. So I'm going to take Notre Dame plus the 3.5 at A&M as my shock this week.
And, I don't know how much of a shock this one is either, right? But I'm going to take West Virginia plus 8. I think West Virginia playing Penn State, that's a really good game. I'm really excited to see that one. But I think West Virginia with Garrett Green at quarterback, Neil Brown, listen, his back was against the wall last season. And he
still coaching for his job. Don't get it twisted.
Yep. You're right about that. So the pressure is on, like you said, but I think with Gary Green at quarterback, they can make something happen, man. I don't know what Penn State is going to look like. They have a ton of unanswered questions, but I do like Coda Nucky, the offensive coordinator they brought over from Kansas. I think they're going to score some points, but I do think West Virginia is going to be able to match them scoring, and I like them +8 against Penn State. So that's my pick of the week right there for the upset. But who knows who's going to happen, man? I like that one. I like that over too. 51.5. I mean, listen, I think they'll score more than 51.5. I'm going with those two teams.
Penn State, I'm glad you bring that Andy Kotelnicki thing. I got to see that, man, because the one thing that holds me back from like crowning him, because you have some good, like, you have Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, freaking Drew Aller, who threw 2 picks last year. Really good ball player.
Fleming transfer from Ohio State.
Yeah, Flem. You have that speedster. He's number 7. I can't think of his name right this second. Saunders. I think it's Kalen Saunders. So he's going to be a stud this year. But the one thing that gives me a little hesitation, Andy Kotelnicki had never coached with anybody else besides Lance Leipold when Lance Leipold came up to Kansas. So now you're dealing with maybe some power struggles. We know James Franklin likes to do, like, he's got his hands all over everything in that program. Like, I just want to see, are you going to let him loose? Or is it going to be like last year where you had that vanilla offense with a bunch of talent on it? I need to see how Andy Kotelnicki can put his fingerprints on that offense before I buy into Penn State. And if he can, Kai, that Penn State team could be terrifying, like very scary.
The defense is going to produce. The defense is going to be good. I think they'll struggle a little bit week 1 just because it's West Virginia with their up-tempo offense with the quarterback. But for the rest of the season, right, they're going to be a team that's going to be in every game because of that defense. You still have Abdul Carter, who, for some people's money, is the best defensive player in all of college football. So I'm really excited to see him move to primarily the edge position. And like you said, I'll talk to the scouts that believe Drew Aller still is an early day 2 pick, and that's even with all the struggles. So if he can, if Kotelnicki can harness that talent, if he has free reign to do so and call the offense how he sees fit, they could give people hell, like we said. So I'm excited to see them. I think they'll win the game. I'm not picking West Virginia to beat them. I just like West Virginia with +8.
Sure.
I'm thinking like a 34-30 type of game is what I see that.
That's one of the more underrated games on the ticket, on the card this week, though. That's one that I'm going to be watching very closely. 11 a.m. on Fox. That's the big noon kickoff game. So make sure you check that one out. And then my bonus pick, I'm going to go Miami minus the 2.5 at Florida. And the reason I just think Mario Cristobal has a more talented team and his back's up against the wall. Go show it. Go win. If you're going to be the team that wins the ACC, win a game like this. And then let's make it. I think there's been a focus and an attitude that they've had, right? Especially on the recruiting trail, bringing in guys that you just know seemingly will pan out. Make it happen, Mario. You have Cam Ward. You have Damian Martinez. You have a good O-line. You have a great defense. You're more talented than Florida this year. I know you're going on the road, but show it. Show it game 1, and then people will start believing in you.
I like that a lot. I think my bonus pick I'm going to take Tennessee minus the points, right? I think they'll cover whatever spread against Chattanooga. No disrespect to Chattanooga, but I think with Nico and those guys and Squirrel White, who I'm really excited to see, I think he's already, if you follow college football, you know who Squirrel White is, a receiver for them. But I think he's a guy that's going to break out and have one of those 1,200 yard type seasons. And this is the perfect game to kick it off for them. I think their defense is going to be much improved. James Pierce Jr. should have 2 or 3 sacks this game. I mean, he's, in my opinion, the best defender in college football, the best defensive player outside of Caleb Downs. I try to keep the young guys out, but Caleb Downs is ridiculous. But I love James Pierce Jr. I think they should dominate that game. And I'm thinking like 40 points covered by halftime. I think they're going to be up pretty big, similar to what they did against UT Martin and those type of teams. So Tennessee, minus the points, I like them.
Josh Heupel shows no mercy in those games either, man.
No mercy, bro. And
he just gets up and down.
With the way the tiebreakers are now and the way you have to score with style points and all that stuff matters at the end of the season.
Yep, for sure. But that's going to do it, man. Let's wrap this thing up. This has been the first episode of G5 Classified. We'll be back every single week, Thursday at noon. Make sure you like, subscribe, go to bluffcitymedia.co and subscribe to everything we have over there. I have another podcast called the On the Bluff Podcast. You can go subscribe to that, the Anthony Sane Show, everything else. But for Kyron, I'm Gabe. We'll go ahead and get up out of here. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Thank you for listening to this episode of G5 Classified. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. To watch this episode, head over to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. We'll see you back here next week.